Thank you. Sorry to start without anybody. Whenever you pull your wax for a second. That sounds like.
Yes.
Are you playing it from the website?
So it's not, okay. That's not hard.
Is there anything we can do about that? Or? Because it's a D200 page, you don't have to stream it live. Because you don't have a meeting. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So we just watch the recording later. Is there any public comment for village board?
No, there's not.
Any other public comment this evening? Okay, then program report, the state of early childhood in Oak Park and the Forest, led by the collab. I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. I'll actually let Becky Straight, our board chair, kick it off.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? See.
Hello. Good evening. Wow. Tech and I are not best friends. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I'm Becky Straight. I'm the chair of the Collab's Board of Directors, and I've been a board member since 2016. I am a retired teacher and district level special education administrator. I worked in several suburban school districts, and I remember when I was first approached about serving on the Collab's board just after I retired by Ann Porter, who's with us tonight. When I heard what the Collab did, I was absolutely blown away. It was so clear to me that the struggles I had seen our families dealing with to secure appropriate supports for their kids could have been addressed so differently, and that the lifelong trajectories of those kids could have been very different than they were. I have to say that after 6 years of work on the Collab's board, this is without a doubt the most impactful work I've ever done. And I always loved my job, and it was meaningful to me. So that is a tremendous thing for me to be able to say. It's a pleasure to be meeting with you all this evening. Laura and the staff have shared the presentation with me in advance, and I think you'll find it both informative and really exciting. I want to begin this evening by telling you how happy I am to have the opportunity to thank you in person. It's so different, for your steadfast support and interest in the Collab's work. We especially want to welcome Kevin Jackson, our new village manager, and Dr. Ushma Shah, D97's new superintendent, both of whom are new to the Collab. Thank you both. Let me introduce our staff and the board members who are here. Laura Crawford, our interim executive director. If you all will just wave so folks know who you are. Shannon Ellison, our director of programs and contracts. Mary Quest, our new early learning coordinator, who we are so excited to have. Sophie Grimes, our communications coordinator. Lisa Jarvis, our operations coordinator. Wendy Jardina, our community engagement coordinator, and Whitney Brooks, who is one of our community ambassadors. And now I'm going to look behind me and make sure I didn't leave anybody out. I did see Azucena Galvez, who's waving in the back, who is also a community ambassador for the collaboration. Board members with us this evening are Louise Gates and Gordon Helwig. And Marian Ivy also. Oh, yay, and Julie Stevens, sneaking in right underneath the clock. As I was thinking about this evening's conversations, I'm not sure that we have ever talked with this group about the Collabs board members. We have worked hard to assemble a diverse board that has deep experience and expertise in early childhood, maternal and child health, including behavioral health, special education, municipal government, nonprofit management, finance, and data analysis. It's a deeply committed and engaged board, and I am incredibly grateful for the work that they do. A couple of quick things to point out for you. In front of you, you have copies of the new 2022 annual report. And also on the table just behind us, we have a variety of resources that are representative of those we provide to parents and providers. And we hope you'll take a look when you have a second. Again, thank you for being here this evening, and let me now hand things over to Laura Crawford.
Thank you, Becky. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Or I do think you're going to want to move closer to the mic for your recording.
All right. How's that? Is that a little better?
Yes.
Just wanted to start off with a grounding exercise. This isn't so much a presentation as it is a touch point of our shared commitment to children and families in our community. I know we've all had busy days moving full speed, trying to get here in person. Now we're here together in the evening. So let's switch gears for a second with a short exercise. We'd like to start off by just grounding ourselves. So I'd like you to take a moment to pause and reflect, even close your eyes if you'd like to. So for a moment, think about what a caring community looks like 20 years from now, especially in regards to young children. What does that look like to you? Who's involved? What are the connections that happen? Where does it happen? What does it feel like? So pause for a second and think about that. And if anybody would like to share what you're feeling or what that looks like to you, feel free to. No pressure, it's all a little bit different for each of us. So personally, I think it feels like trust, with the trust that comes from strong relationships. And it's a supportive environment where a child who is raised here from an early age is happy growing up here and considers raising their own family. One thing we were thinking about that we did this when we were putting the slides together was to think, you know, young children today are going to be the ones who grow up to care for us when we're 90 years old. We would like them to be wonderful human beings. But they do. So, would anyone else like to share their thoughts on that?
I hesitate because I don't want to embarrass. Sophie, is your mother's name Karen? No? Okay, well then that's good. My mother was a daycare, had a home daycare growing up, and I can't help to think of that right now, but and the Grimes family was one of her families as I was early in college, and one foot out the should have watched her as a daycare mom with a number of families that I know today in the community. So community and caring.
So before we get into the specifics of the presentation, I'd like to frame our conversation in relation to two key points. First, that 90% of a person's brain is fully developed before they even enter kindergarten. These early years are the most productive time for making the neural connections that will carry a person forward for their entire lives. This time of brain development is crucial for a person's emotional well-being, social competence, and cognitive ability. What happens in the first 5 years will last a lifetime. That's one thing to keep in mind. The second is that developing children need a strong community of caring and support. That's what helps build their brains. It's their relationships with people that are so important. Relationships with the people in their homes, at their preschool programs, anyone who cares for them. It also means that we as a whole community should support our children as a whole. We are all part of a web of support for young children. As an organization, the Collaboration for Early Childhood builds the connections for our community to support young children. We bring partners together towards a common goal of ensuring children have what they need to thrive. We do that through the lens known as collective impact. So collective impact is a place-based approach to achieving strong outcomes for communities, recognizing the unique strengths, opportunities, and challenges in each place. It acknowledges that it will take everyone to do the work. Who is everyone who does this work? Well, it's all of us, those who are here tonight, and organizations like Housing Forward and the Housing Center and Oak Layden. It's childcare providers, it's family practice doctors, and of course, it's families and people who care for young children. We are community-driven and people-powered. We can be voices at the table on behalf of young kids, and you'll hear more about our partners throughout this presentation. We do have a short video about collective impact, but I'm going to skip it because we're having some issues with the audio. So I'm just going to keep on going. We'll share these slides afterwards, so if you would like to see it, it will be available. So you've already been introduced to our staff from Becky. Our staff make up what is known as like the backbone, the core group of people who do collective impact work, when everybody else in the community are the actual people who do collective impact work. So there are actually more of us. We partner closely with Easter Seals, and Michelle is here from Easter Seals tonight for both home visiting work and coordinated intake services. And you'll hear more about that. We also have more community ambassadors during busy outreach times, and our committees do a lot of our work. So in your packets, you don't have a printout, but in your packet, there's a long report. It's a good 80 pages, looks like this. I encourage you to take a look at it. It's a thorough look at the last program year, which goes from July 2021 through June 2022. So it's rich in data about all the indicators in the contract for early childhood services, which is what brings us here this evening. And tonight we're going to provide some highlights from the past year. So our work breaks out into 4 program service areas: community engagement, family engagement, health and development, and early learning. They all blend together, and there's a lot of overlap around those areas, and you'll see that as we go on. So one of the things the collaboration is committed to is elevating the voices of people that we connect with. In the presentation, you'll see quotes from people who we've spoken to recently. These will give you an idea of where people are coming from right now and what's on their minds. You'll also see notes about policy implications in each area. As local policymakers, we know you're wondering what you can bring back to your own board tables, and we hope to start some ideas for things for you to consider. So we thought this was a nice quote to kick us off. It's from someone who's worked at social services here in the neighborhood for a while. They said, "I think this is the most collaborative field. This is the most collaborative this field, which is social services in Oak Park, has ever been. There's a much bigger emphasis on what we need together and where we can connect. We absolutely need more connector people. So many things can get lost in the shuffle. There's absolutely the will to connect, but we need to do better on the means to connect." So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Shannon Ellison, our Director of Programs and Contracts, to start us off with an overview of early learning.
Okay, everybody can hear me? So the first program area that we're gonna start off with is the early learning program area. The collaboration works in areas of teacher quality, leadership, and professional development to promote successful early childhood classroom experiences for all children through the early learning component of our work. So here's a quote from one of our partners that sums up where the early learning field has been recently. There is a loss of workers in the caregiving field. This is a stress point. Same with healthcare and mental health. The system is under a lot of pressure. We are not as impactful as we could be. We need to look at systems, capacity, care, and tending to. And we've been hearing that a lot during the pandemic, and it's still happening. Our programming has focused on supporting those people who work with and in early childhood. So let's look at some examples of that. So just in February of 2020, we held our 19th annual Early Childhood Symposium, and some of the key highlights about that symposium, the theme was moving from surviving to thriving, which was particularly poignant back in February of 2022. We responded directly to feedback from the previous year to reduce Zoom fatigue by breaking out the symposium across 4 separate days, which occurred 2 Saturdays and 2 weekday evenings. Our keynote speaker was Kristen Mraz. While the virtual format has pros and cons, one of the pros was that she was able to join us from Brooklyn, New York, and gave a wonderful presentation on joyful discovery, building early childhood classrooms that thrive. And we are deep into planning our next symposium, which we're excited to say is back in person at Percy Julian Middle School. The theme is creativity, curiosity, and caring. It's scheduled to take place on Saturday, February 25th, and the keynote speaker will be Richard Cohen. The topic is cultivating creative learners and curious minds. The next thing I want to talk about is something that we call the Director and Family Child Care Provider Roundtables. These are opportunities for those professionals to gather and network with each other. And this is a great example of the cross-program area collaboration that we engage in to meet children's needs from all angles. This offering was born out of a parent call. So this particular offering that you're seeing on the screen was born out of a parent call for support with needing childcare for her child who was experiencing some developmental challenges. We were able to provide mom with childcare program contact information as well as mental health resources for the family. The program team, through this interaction with mom, also identified a need to reinforce the understanding of the Illinois preschool anti-expulsion laws and the resources available to support program staff, families, and children through challenging behaviors. The team you see listed here worked in partnership to develop 2 information sessions. So one was offered for the early learning professionals, while the other was offered for parents. Next on the screen, you'll see a quote from a local program director. No matter what we've all been through, kids are still kids, and they are amazing and resilient and funny and profound in ways that are just like, wow. One of the great things about working in early childhood is you can really see the change. I have a day-to-day impact on these small humans, and it's easy to see. Another one of our roundtable highlights. So our meetings with our early learning professionals are vital to learning about how best to meet their needs. We find ways to meet their concerns and navigate ways to address them. So in response to concerns from parents and educators about the impact of COVID pandemic and early childhood speech development, we invited speech and language pathologist Erica Norman to present on exactly that topic. And she presented information about current research, scope of speech and language pathology, milestones for communication, and tips and tricks to support communication in young children. And we do have copies of the speech development card that you see on the screen on the table in the back. If you'd like to see it. Next, I'm going to talk about professional development for our early childhood educators. So all of the images that you see on the screen represent just a few of the professional development opportunities we offer during the program year. And on the right, you'll see a photo of our former executive director, John Barrero, with Michelle Howell. of Easter seals who were filmed together last spring for an on-demand professional learning platform focusing on equity that the new Teacher Center developed for educators. So next, we're going to talk just very briefly about policy success stories. We like to hear those success stories, right? So we are thrilled about this brand new program that will be starting very soon. It's essentially cash assistance for childcare programs to use as they need to support their programs. The funds are from the Federal American Rescue Plan Act for the ARPA program. The collaboration worked closely with village staff around the eligibility and application design. And our role is to encourage programs to apply, and we may work with the village to assist people with their applications. Ultimately, this is a village program that supports early childhood. And this came to the table as a suggestion from village trustees. It's a fantastic example of policymakers taking to heart how important early childhood is to the entire community and making a difference at a policy level. It's a very tangible way to see the benefits of the collective impact model. So thank you very much. The next thing I'm going to talk about is health and development, near and dear to my heart. The collaboration works to ensure that all children birth to 5 receive routine and periodic developmental vision and hearing screenings, and that all children who need additional evaluation or assessment and services can access them. So here's a quote from one of our local early learning professionals. I'm grateful for the weekly meetings with the collaboration and the Oak Park Health Department that cover relevant health topics. During the last meeting, a PowerPoint presentation was shared with valuable information on hand, foot, and mouth disease. Just the very next day after receiving a copy of the presentation, we had a student diagnosed with hand, foot, and mouth disease. The timing of the presentation was perfect for us. I was able to quickly and easily share the PowerPoint presentation with our families to help answer their questions and explain what are the symptoms. It truly made my job easier. And what that provider is referencing is the way that we have been able to develop a partnership with the Oak Park Public Health Department with Dr. Chapel Magruder and her staff. It started out as a way for providers to get answers to their questions about COVID-19 policies, procedures, guidance, reporting. They would get weekly updates on things that they needed to know because COVID guidance was changing very, very rapidly. They were having a hard time with all the emails that the health department was receiving. So we were able to work out an arrangement with them where we met with them on a weekly basis. Since the COVID guidance has stabilized, we've transitioned those meetings to opportunities for the Oak Park Public Health Department to share information about various relevant health topics with early learning professionals, as well as giving them additional guidance about safety measures and other things. So we've continued this partnership. The next thing we'll talk about is our child health and screening opportunities. So one of the ways that we engage in this work is by providing preschool vision and hearing screenings to center-based programs in Oak Park and River Forest. And so this past program year, 1,060 children received vision screenings, 1,063 children received hearing screenings, 33 programs participated in the screenings. And this is out of approximately 4,000 kids in Oak Park and River Forest, age 5 and under. And that's per the census. With preschool enrollment being down, this number might be a little lower than what we've seen in the past. That number is also a little bit of a squishy number because it is a very hard number for us to get a hold of. We usually get that data a few years behind. And keep in mind too, this also only represents those children who are in center-based programs. During the last program year, we also supported programs to implement developmental screenings within their programs. And when I say programs, I mean our early learning programs. There are 3 medical practices and a couple of community-based organizations that implement developmental screening in their work. So last year, there were 1,774 children screened. Out of that, 1,754 ASQ3s, that's the global developmental screener. 1,540 ASQ-SE2s, that's the social emotional screener. And 1,520 children actually have both screenings during the course of the year. I'm also pleased to share that this program year, we will also be expanding our screening efforts to engage in screening with families around social determinants of health, to see if there are any things that families are needing that we can connect them to. And this is with the support from the American Academy of Pediatrics Catch Grant, which was awarded to Dr. Stephanie Weller, who is one of the physicians on our Health and Development Committee. So they were able to provide us with some funding to implement this screening tool, and we will be launching that very, very soon in cooperation with our existing screening network. Speaking of our Health and Development Committee, that committee works to plan Physicians Network events. While these used to be in-person breakfast events, because of the pandemic, we did shift those to virtual events. And we did hold 2 virtual events during last program year. In the fall of 2021, the topic was Horses and Zebras, an out-of-the-box approach to addressing early childhood health challenges. And then just this past spring of 2022, I feel like I'm being coached, family and provider perspectives of early intervention services delivered through telehealth. And as you can see on the screen, we partner with other local organizations to provide these presentations for the healthcare providers. We continue to do that. We also, if you remember, I said that the vision and hearing screening numbers represented children who were enrolled in center-based program. In order to reach some of those children who are not enrolled in center-based program, we offered an early childhood health and development screening day in partnership with the Park District of Oak Park. So we held a screening day at one of the Park District sites where children were able to come and receive a developmental screening, a vision and hearing screening, a dental exam and cleaning, as well as free COVID testing. And then older children and adults were also able to get COVID vaccines and boosters if they chose. So for that, we partnered with the Village's Health Department for the COVID vaccines, the IWS Children's Clinic for dental exams and cleanings, Easter Seals for developmental screening, and infant toddler vision and hearing screening. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Laura.
Thank you, Shannon.
So we've had such success connecting with Dr. Chappell Magruder that we are trying to figure out ways to expand on that. We're starting to think about how we can grow our health work and wondering where there are synergies with health-related staff who are already in the schools and at the village who might want to reach families with young children. So we're just asking you to consider where is it beneficial to connect even more of our village and school-based health professionals, such as public health staff, school-based nurses, social work staff, mental health practitioners, and any other allied health professionals to the early childhood universe. So this isn't something that we'll solve tonight, but it's something to think about for a future time. So we'd love to come out of this session in that maybe in a week or a month or 2 months, sometime down the road, you have a great idea about something like that, and give us a call, email us, pick up your pink bubblegum phone that I know you have sitting around your house, carrier pigeon, all the things we have on the screen, just to make a connection, share an idea about something that comes to mind. Like maybe you're in a meeting and talking about something with the health department or mental health practitioners, and think, oh, I should connect them to the collab. So that's kind of just what we're thinking and the policy realm there for health. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sophie, who's going to talk us through family engagement.
Hello. So the family engagement component of the collaboration offers a robust continuum of opportunities for parents to connect, grow, and access resources to be their child's first and most supportive teacher. So we will kick off this part with a pretty fantastic quote that reads, "I was shocked when I had my baby, and they just let me take her home after she was born." I was like, you're gonna let me drive away with this thing? You got a manual or something for this? And that was a delightful thing that a community partner said. And I agree as the mother of a toddler. So that sort of frames where a lot of parents are coming from, you know? And so we often hear people refer to an early childhood systems work. But there really isn't one early childhood system. There are many systems and they're siloed with a lot of dead ends, depending on eligibility, and it's very hard to navigate. So with that in mind, in the spring of 2021, the collaboration launched a dedicated coordinated intake role to serve as a warm line for families and community members that contact us really about anything. The part of our goal here was that there was no wrong door or many different doors for families to find information that meets them where they're at. So in your little packet, you have a flyer related to coordinated intake, and it's called Ask Lanita. Lanita is our intake coordinator, and she talks to anyone who calls or walks in to understand their situation and provide them with relevant, customized resources and referrals. So when a parent, for example, this is an example of how coordinated intake can kind of create connections. So when a parent calls us to ask about free preschool, we can also talk to them about home visiting programs, parent workshops, and if they're expecting a new baby, sign them up for a baby bundle. So that's kind of how we can make things a little bit more interconnected. And then just this program year, our intake coordinator connected with 256 people and directed them to a variety of supports, including 158 free preschool and early learning program offerings, 29 home visiting enrollments, 55 early childhood resource directory referrals for general childcare, 38 early intervention and or early childhood special education, information questions or referrals, and 16 baby bundles. We also connected folks to the Child Care Assistance Program, Housing Forward, parenting workshops, Mom Mail, OPRF Mom Mail, and early childhood colleges for professional development for educators. So it's really runs the gamut. And you can see that in the list of things that Lanita can answer for you. So the next focus of our work this past program year and ongoing has been connecting to new and expecting parents and moms. So again, as the mother of a toddler who was born during the COVID-19 pandemic, I remember how vulnerable you feel and how easy it is to feel isolated, disconnected from others with shared experience. And this is how many parents feel. So this is one of the reasons that we launched the Baby Bundles program. It's kind of a program, it's mostly baby bundles. They are free tote bags filled with goodies and resources for parents and their babies. So the goal is to ensure that important resources are at parents' fingertips right from the start. And they're to use when and if they need them. And a baby bundle is sort of like the carrot. Like, here's all this wonderful free stuff, but it also has amazing resources inside. So another goal is to ensure that any new mom experiencing baby blues or postpartum depression can get connected to mental health support. The other piece of this is that while after parents receive their bundles, the collaboration follows up with them to see if they have any questions and provide any additional assistance if they need it. And a little tidbit about that, when we first launched the program during the 2020-21 year, we distributed 65 baby bundles, and this past year, we bumped it up to 103 baby bundles. So that's really exciting that we're reaching more new parents. Other ways that we connect with new parents is through the new and prenatal moms group and infant massage classes. Parenting workshops are open to all parents with young children, and they cover popular topics like potty training and transitioning to kindergarten. 20 workshops were offered this past program year with a total of 152 parents and caregivers attending. These workshops were coordinated in partnership with the Parenting Resource Program committee members and community partners who are listed on the slide here. And then for parents who, are looking for other ways to connect with us, again, there are many doors and there are no wrong doors. Ready for K is a text messaging program that sends 3 texts a week with little tidbits to parents about ways that they can promote their child's healthy development. Welcome to Fatherhood we continued our partnership with Welcome to Fatherhood that hosted a bi-weekly men's group for fathers and father figures to unpack their own unique experiences. And we also publish a monthly newsletter for parents that highlight community resources and upcoming family-friendly events. And we distributed themed activity bags during COVID for children and families to explore from their homes. And even more ways that parents learned and connected. Families First, La Familia Primero is our parent-led team that is supported by the collaboration. They also publish a monthly newsletter and they host a variety of parent-focused events such as parent circles, parent chats, and also workshops. They just recently this fall hosted a infant CPR course. Our community ambassadors are all parents based right here in the community that conduct outreach all over the place. They also lead the collaboration's parent leadership training. And the goal of that parent leadership training is for parents to organize, prioritize, and create an action plan to accomplish their goals. These goals can be life goals, or goals that can be for the community as a whole. Through the tools that they receive through that training, parents become stronger advocates for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. Here's another thing a parent said. There's a lot of things I don't ask for. I needed help, but I just didn't ask. I figured people are busy, this and that. I don't know, I'm kind of shy. So this captures how we can't assume that everyone can ask for what they need. And sometimes even knowing what to ask for can be hard. As one of our community partners said very concisely, you don't know what you don't know. So that's why we try to make sure people see information that relates to them and connect with us. The Chicago Parent Program is another one of our programs, and it is a parent caregiving curriculum that we offer in multiple cohorts every year. The workshops run for 12 weeks, and they are for parents and caregivers of children ages 2 to 5. In the past, we've called these parenting workshops, but this year we are referring to them as caregiver workshops to be more inclusive and open to anyone who cares for young children, because it's not always a parent. So this past program year, we trained 2 new facilitators to lead these workshops, making for a total of 11 people in the community who could facilitate these workshops. So this is a train the trainer model, which we also use, side note, in our potty training workshops. So it makes sharing knowledge easier and more self-sustaining. So with that, I will pass it over to Laura.
Thank you, Sophie. We have a quote here from a parent who participates in our home visiting program, which I'll talk about in just a moment. This program is amazing. I am so glad that I found this program. All the help and resources they share are great. People in the home visiting program are always ready to help, and they make me feel like I'm not alone. The activities that my parent educator brings to every visit are very helpful, and my son loves them. The rest of the activities are also great, and it's always a pleasure to see how much the kids enjoy and learn from these activities. We put a lot on the slide. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to see here, but overall, so there are 4 programs that do home visiting in Oak Park. That's New Moms, Children's Home and Aid, Kids Above All, and then Easter Seals. Each program has slightly different eligibility criteria and works with families with varying circumstances. The 4 home visiting programs meet together regularly and compare referrals and coordinate to make sure that all families are all set. We, the collaboration, contracts with Easter Seals, and that's called the Partnering with Parents program. The data you see here is a window into Easter Seals. So you've heard about coordinated intake from Sophie. That has had a huge impact on reaching new families. When people call about preschool, Lenita can have a conversation that may lead to referring them to a home visiting program. Last year, Easter Seals referred about half of their referrals from coordinated intake. Once families are enrolled, they report a very high level of satisfaction for partnering with parents, with a very high retention rate as well. And so what does a home visit look like? Well, it's unique to each family and what they prefer. The parent educator will complete age-appropriate activities, allowing the caregiver to see what their child can do, giving them ideas and support for other age-appropriate activities, and informing them of the next steps for their children. But the visit will focus on whatever the parent wants to focus on. So parent educators share information and support with anything that comes up, including evidence-based options of health, nutrition, sleep, safety, attachment, transitions or routines, and positive discipline for each child. And that's just the beginning. The support is individualized to each family and each child. And it's important to know that the parent guides these visits. They're based on what their own goals are. And this quote came from another parent who participates in home visiting. Our goals are for our children to be good, thoughtful, and kind people who are confident in who they are, standing up for themselves and others. Our goals are also for them to be well-rounded, caring, educated people. Just wanted to pause on that for a second because I think it ties back so much to what we were thinking about in the very beginning, reflecting on what we want our community to be like. It's so nice to hear that directly from a parent who's in a home visiting program. It's what I think we all want from our kids. So to kind of wrap up the family engagement section, a policy action step here, again, with the bubblegum pink phone, pick it up. We were just thinking about another policy question, which is how can we make our community-wide support more approachable to families with children? And just think about, are there ways that your own board has or could have a no wrong door approach? And give us a call anytime with your ideas. All right, so for community engagement.
Community engagement. This program service area engages the entire community in the success of our children, leveraging resources from other agencies to support children and families on their journey to kindergarten. So to kick this component off, this quote is really powerful. This year is all about refilling our staff members' cups, finding our love and passion for the work again, finding joy. I'm sure you guys all feel like refilling it up. But I hope that through this conversation, you're inspired and maybe this is your cup refiller for you. So we wanted to share it from that frame, but we also wanted to frame a lot of the work in the community engagement component area with this quote. So one of the things we did this past program year was, because it was a hard year for all teachers and preschool teachers and childcare providers for no exception, we gave out and delivered 350 gift cards with special notes to providers to give them a pick-me-up and remind them to connect to our early learning supports because they did heroic work this past year. We also celebrated children's well-being and early childhood resources on social media and on our website. This program year, we launched Wellness Wednesday posts that highlighted all kinds of things related to early childhood health and development, and our communications grew. We published 43 blog posts. We have 4,600 email subscribers to our monthly newsletter, and 17,000 new visitors checked out our website for resources like our online early childhood resource directory. And this was an exciting thing. We celebrated our 20th birthday in style at the 19th Century Club on April 30th. 170 board members, staff, early childhood educators, community partners, and friends were able to celebrate together all of the amazing accomplishments from the past 20 years. We were excited to honor the over 50 early childhood educators in attendance that night, as well as all of our founders and our partners in the intergovernmental agreement, all of you guys. We couldn't have put on such a wonderful event without the overwhelming support of our 19 individual and 30 corporate sponsors. Because of them, we were able to celebrate in style. And this is just another testament to the support and prioritization that our community has for early childhood. We launched our volunteer group, Cece's Crew, and we so appreciated the time and talent of our many volunteers who helped out with tasks large and small, including stuffing those baby bundles that we mentioned, planning the birthday bash, updating and delivering our early childhood resource directories, helping presenters at the symposium, and distributing the developmental referral and services directories. They also helped with logistics at our drive-in movie. Okay, and this one, oh man, this is pretty fun and timely. So the collab board and staff last year received and responded to 64 requests from parents for letters to their children from Santa and other holiday friends. This was a way to just brighten people's lives. It was a tough time last year at this time, and you know, to just light up a kid's face with a little letter was a fun thing to do. We also partnered with local coffee shops to provide letter templates to color. And so we received many letters to Santa in our red mailbox outside of 171, which is out there now. So we're doing it again, and we have received 70 letter requests already from Santa, Ariel, Elsa, one thing named DJ Catnip, and Rudolph, among others.
DJ Catnip is Gabby Stallhouse.
Yes.
So there is someone in the know.
You're welcome.
We may need your intel when you write this letter. The form is open until the 11th, so please spread the word. And as we wrap up the community engagement section of this presentation, the next quote really does a wonderful frame to just ask the broader questions around our community engagement work. How do we tap into the resources and the talents of the community in a way that could give back to the community by helping families that need these skill sets and supports? And that was a question posed by a community partner. Back to Laura.
Thank you. As we kind of wrap up our community engagement section, thinking about policy action steps there, we're wondering how can we create partnerships to make local dollars go further and support both businesses and families? When we ask that, we're thinking of things like encouraging kids eat free nights at restaurants, or maybe a group of employees or volunteers doing a volunteer project together for young kids. We're open to anything, and we've got Wendy Giardina on staff who would love to compare notes and come up with ideas together. So we're always asking, how can our whole village support children? And that's it for our overview of program activities. But as far as the policy summary goes, we've heard some common themes here tonight around suggestions of what we can all do together to move forward on behalf of young children. These things give us the structure to make our shared vision happen. We encourage you to bring young kids to your table, to demystify system processes to ensure no wrong door and equitable access for everyone, and to think creatively about sharing resources and connecting people. And we're here to move this work ahead and support you in doing the same. And our intention is just to be as inclusive as possible. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to pause there for questions. That was our main program report section of the evening. So pause for any questions or comments there, and then Becky will give us an overview of strategic planning. Please.
I have a question, and thanks for the presentation. It was really great to hear about all the great work that you're doing. I was struck by the social determinants of health screening that you're about to embark on. And one of the things that it made me think is that if you do a similar number of screens to what you've been doing with other screens, it seems like the information you get would not only be helpful in connecting individual families to existing services, but would really be helpful to other institutions in the community and thinking about how we understand and meet the needs of kids and families in Oak Park and River Forest. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you plan to do with screening results as you get them, understanding, of course, that you're still probably figuring some of it out.
Yes, I can speak to that. So very much like you say, we are still figuring it out, but we will be launching that soon. That will give us a compilation of data that we will be able to share. Several of us sit on various of the homeless coalitions committees and subcommittees, and so we're engaged. Like I'm on what used to be the Services Intersection Committee. So I am in regular contact with all of the other community service organizations that also sit on those committees. And it would be a wonderful opportunity for me to share that information with anybody or any agency that I think would benefit from having the knowledge of how many families that we refer to for housing supports or for legal supports or for education supports and all of these other things. So we'll be using a screener that is also made by the members of the Ages and Stages questionnaire. They have a screener called the Environmental Screening Questionnaire. And that's what we're going to be using to implement this project. So yeah, we'll have access to that kind of information to be able to share. We also have subscriptions with both NowPal and what used to be Aunt Bertha's The Hub, which I think now is called Find Help. So we do have access to both of those databases so that when we make referrals, we have the ability to make those referrals.
That's great. I would also love to think about sharing it with government bodies as well, because I think it would be really informative for us too.
Yeah, and that information, just like you saw our developmental and vision and hearing screening results, that information will be part of the data set that will get shared out through our IGA and Charter.
Thank you.
One other thing I'll mention is our work with Chapin Hall, as they're building the database. They're also doing work with us to be able to compile the Ages and Stages questionnaire data, and then there's placeholders in that work to also be able to incorporate some of this data and also be able to provide information. We shared this with Dr. Shaw, like to be able to tell them, so we did all these developmental screenings and we see that X number of children scored in the monitor or refer range for speech for this school's area, to be able to help like the district see who may be coming.
Yeah.
And so that they can be adequately prepared to meet those children. So we're always thinking about how we can use data to inform our work and how to collect it in a way that is easy to share and helpful for organizations. So thank you for that. And again, pick up your pink rose on phone. Anytime you have ideas and you want to talk about more ways to make that happen, I am always happy to pick up.
I have to find it first, but I'm sure it's in the
Carrie's
closet somewhere.
vision,
Yeah.
email, whatever works.
All right.
I have two questions. Hi, I'm Shyla. I'm a D97 board member. I have two young girls, one who just finished early childhood and one who's in it right now. So shout outs to La Casa and the day nursery. They're both early learning related, my questions. My first question is just thinking about the pandemic and potential sort of like learning loss that students may be experiencing. Do you all have ways that you disseminate information or share best practices related to developing early literacy and early math to your centers?
So I can say, we absolutely have access to that information. And I don't know if you all are aware, but so the collaboration, we're in the process of recruiting new staff people, but we just brought Mary Quest on, who's our new early learning partnership coordinator. And she's amazing, especially at thinking of ways to distribute and disseminate that kind of information. It is on our radar through the collaboration between that program area and the family engagement program area to continue to offer that like transition to kindergarten kind of workshop we talked about in here, like the whole demystification of things like assessments or IEP processes, or, you know, like you're saying, like early math, early literacy. Another thing that we created last year is something called the story wall. So these are, we took a book and put them basically on lawn signs, and you can access a kit of them. We presented them at outreach events, WonderWorks has had them, but early learning programs in the community can check them out and have them available for their children and in return, and so they can travel through the community. So we're always looking for ways to make sure that that kind of information is available. And again, if you have any other ideas of how you think you can do that better or do more of that, feel free to reach out to me.
I would just add that for the publicly funded preschool program, so D97's program at Longfellow and Day Nursery and ABC Toontown, we do have some richer data thanks to an assessment tool called Teaching Strategies Gold. And so we have looked at that in the past and noticed that some of the results indicated that teachers needed an additional boost in how to teach early math curriculum. And so that informed some professional development offerings that we were able to offer to the teachers in how to do early math through Erickson's early math initiative that they had. So that's an example of how we look at data. We only have those teaching strategies in those 3 programs, but it's a pretty good indicator. And then teachers can also look at those, and directors can also look at those results to see kind of how kids are doing in a classroom or all together.
And my other question is just potentially more aspirational, but had you thought about, or is there a way to track the children who go through early childhood programs in Oak Park and their continued success in K through 12 schooling?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. Yes, because of our partnership with Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago, they actually are the ones that hold that information over time and are able to look at combine different factors as if, you know, perhaps to see kind of what the trajectory is of a child. It's not the kind of data that's kind of a pure research study. It's not indicative of, you know, an entire community, but yes, if a child has stayed in Oak Park, they can kind of look and see how kids are doing. And because of our history of data collection, you know, even though we just celebrated our 20th year, we haven't been doing all of this for 20 years. We're really just at the point now where we're starting to be able to look at that as far as making sure the data is relevant.
I have a question related to one of the challenges you raised earlier, which is, are there relationships with the major healthcare institutions in the area? And would there be value like Rush Oak Park or et cetera, based with all the emphasis?
We do not currently have relationships with Rush or West Up. We do informally. There's a lot of activity with Rush around home visiting because of the community health programs that they have, and so staff from Rush have actually been on our board and offer insights of the programs that they have, but we don't have a formalized, you know, agreement of sharing anything. And we share materials, you know, like we'll bring resource directories over to the hospitals, and that is definitely an area where we know has rich to grow, and we would love to be able to do that.
And I think,
want to add to that?
and I would just add that I think individually too, as we see opportunities to connect, we do reach out and connect individually. Like I was in one meeting and there was somebody from Rush there. She was talking about that they were getting ready to implement social determinant of health type thing. And so I said, hey, can we talk? And we had a conversation about what are you doing? This is what we're starting to do. She's like, I'm new, getting, you know, the feel of things. And so she's on my radar, on her radar, for us to continue to stay in touch so that we can build those relationships. But absolutely, any ways that we can build and strengthen those relationships. We've done things at West Suburban hospital before in terms of events. I've had meetings there to try to talk to them about engaging in a developmental training project, those kinds of things. So we've done work to try to start those relationships, but absolutely looking for ways to grow and strengthen them.
The coast was clear. All right, yeah, I guess my one question, I think you all brought it up, was when a parent is asking about free childcare, does that then trigger like some sort of packet for like WIC and other services that might be available?
I would say the short answer is yes. Yeah, I think that's why coordinated intake has been so fantastic, because Lanita can, she can ask, she can get a sense of, what else is going on in your life, figure out if they might be qualifying, if they might qualify for WIC. And so that's where we also make other referrals. And then the baby bundles is probably the best example of that. There is, it's a tote bag. I don't know if anyone has a tote bag. Do you want to look at your tote bag? So it's that tote bag filled with some toys, like a thermometer, so you can make sure the water's not too hot, little stacking cups, things that are very tangible, but it also has a packet of paper materials. And some of them are around things like WIC eligibility or Medicaid and other referrals to other social services. And then she will actually call back the family in a few weeks later to see, hey, did you get a chance to read it? She'll kind of have something earmarked to know what to follow up with that family.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think someone over there brought up, during, pandemic time, your kids were struggling with, some early math and some of those other things. And I think that definitely felt throughout the country. I think one of the things not to plug this, but one of the things I did this summer was I did some temp work in the Park Public Library, and they did a collaboration with you all. And I traveled on this book bike, and we had these bags, and some of the bags had some early development for children. So we brought them to block parties. We tried to really talk about what was inside the bag, because I think it gave an opportunity for some people who were pretty shut in for obvious reasons, an opportunity to have access to some things and materials that might be able to help them through that process. And you can even reach out to the library and make one specially for you and put it off to the side. So I don't know if that helps, but there are some resources that they reach pretty far. So it's pretty cool to see this kind of embedded in the community.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas for how Families First started to distribute the activity bags too, because we realized that parents were at home with children and they needed more things to do with them. So that was another. And that's really also go back to your first question, how we came to coordinated intake is that we realized families are calling for free preschool, but we have all this other information and all these other resources that we think could apply for them. That whole like, you don't know what you don't know. Like they didn't know that there was home visiting. They didn't know that we could help connect them to early intervention or early childhood special education. Like they didn't know, but having somebody be in coordinated intake that says, yes, you're calling about this, but do you have any children under the age of 3? Could you use this? Do you need this? Would home visiting be helpful? And somebody to be able to kind of like navigate all of that and connect to the rest of the program team.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Also, big shout out to the library.
Yes.
We could do a whole nother hour-long presentation about all the things we do with the library. Thank you for doing the book bike, because that's fantastic. One other thing we do with the library is have another set of bags with curriculum resources for early childhood teachers. So they can just go to the library themselves and check out those bags and bring them back to their classroom.
Thank you guys so much for this presentation. I'm seeing, it's been impressive to see like the growth over the years. So thank you so much. I think that's a great point that you bring up, Trustee. Trustee G. But I think that's a great point, and I would ask, how do you do outreach that reaches like a larger span of people? Because I think that traditionally, like when my now two big kids, when they were younger, I remember like getting those packets and saying like, oh, I don't need this, or I think I won't qualify for these because I don't qualify for these services. So I think like, how do you be at places like home daycares, other daycares that may not fall into the group that you mentioned, the library? I'm thinking about my sister and her son. Like, how do people who think like I don't qualify, or I don't meet the requirements, or I'm not quite low income, to discover those programs? Because what I've always feared, and I've expressed this a couple of times, because I think that people miss it because they think I don't qualify or I'm not in that category. But you don't know what you don't know, and those things still might be helpful to you. But I'm thinking like the doctors that we see referred over and over again to working moms, right? Like, are those doctors getting resources if they're going to the library? Other places that families might be. So just thinking about like, how do we make it accessible to all and people feel comfortable going, and not that like, I don't know if I qualify for this.
It makes me so excited to hear you ask those questions, because for starters, it sounds like you've been eavesdropping on every conversation that we've had in the 6 years that I've been on the board. How do we find the people who either think I won't qualify for that? So for example, families where their kids are in kith and kin daycare, those folks aren't licensed, and we don't have a structured network for getting to those folks. We're going to talk about this when we talk about strategic planning in a minute, because that is a cornerstone of the work that we know we need to do. It absolutely is. Another piece of that would be a structured connection to other agencies in the community. So Beyond Hunger and Housing Forward, what tends to happen is that the folks at the top of the organization are aware of what we do, but there isn't necessarily a structured way to make sure that everybody who is in contact with families also has that information. We have to figure out how to deal with staff turnover at those organizations, all of that kind of stuff. And that will be part of what we do in the strategic plan that we put together. That's a lot of stuff.
And I guess more specifically, like, I remember at Hepzibah, there was a family, so they were not quite in the low income range, but they were experiencing like a moment of homelessness. So then how do we reach those families that maybe throughout the year they're okay, but right now they're having a really hard time? So do you coordinate with Hepzibah or the Park District or any of those places?
Yes. Yeah, we do. We have regular meetings with all of the directors of all the programs, and even with Hepzibah, even though they don't have the Head Start program anymore. One of the things that Mary will be doing as our early learning coordinator is having a regular schedule of reaching out to program directors and also home-based programs, as long as we can find them, which is always very tricky. There are, let's say, how many programs are we on? Probably about 58, probably about 60 early learning programs just in Oak Park and River Forest. So it's reaching out to all of them directly. I think another big thing to do is to demystify language that we use. So instead of putting out a flyer that says home visiting, it's using language that describes what the services are
and make sure that it's relatable to families, that they see themselves in all the presentations that we put out. But yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of families that we still want to find, and that's just a constant.
And I would just add that we also try very hard when we're thinking about language, because sometimes you want to say free and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to say support and sometimes you don't, because people don't feel like they need support, but you want to give the information. Sometimes you put free and it's families that be like, oh, I can afford it if I can go. And other people will be like, I don't want to go to that if it's free, because that's not for people like me. So we try to be very careful with the language that we use to be as inclusive as possible and to help people know that this is for everybody.
Related, answer for the next seven, related to information sharing. And it's one question I have, when I think of my vision of where early childhood would be, one of the pieces would be with the handoff between early childhood into D97 is supported. And there's not a drop off, not only for the students, but also for their caregivers. So I'd love to hear kind of what information you can share right now between those two groups, and also this is as a chance to encourage ongoing looking at how that transition can be smooth and not result in any drop off, and not result in the least amount of stress possible for everyone.
That is another amazing question that we think about a lot as well. I think it's important to keep in mind that that there's, I think what Becky said earlier, is that there's not a whole early childhood system. Like, we would love to be able to be, you know, we're not a school district per se for early childhood. We do a lot of the elements that the school district does, but we're a nonprofit organization who reaches out and connects with everything. That's kind of why we're here tonight, is to encourage so many other organizations and small businesses in the community to do this work with us. So that's part of it. I think as far as the specifics about data sharing and handoff, we've always worked so closely with D97. So there are things like Get Ready for Preschool workshops that we have in the latter part of the months leading up to kindergarten registration, April, May. We have regularly done workshops on Get Ready for Kindergarten, and tried to connect with kindergarten teachers around what to look at. The specific, and we always promote kindergarten registration, of course, but the actual data is data from Longfellow's PKP program. And so that's a preschool program that there's a data sharing agreement for, and also with Data Street and HC Town, because those are preschool programs. So Chapin Hall has the registration information for those families and their the teaching strategies goal assessment scores. And those can come back to D97 if that's something that D97 is interested in looking at. Otherwise, it's the aggregate information that's in these reports here about kind of the community as a whole. And we met with Dr. Shaw just last week around starting to reinvigorate what we do together as far as the kindergarten transition, and with Mary on board now too. I think that's going to be one of the number one things that we're going to be looking at. We just got some new thinking here, and it's just the post-COVID environment allows us to throw everything out the window and start anew and figure out what kids need right now. So it's sort of taking that as an opportunity to do some new things.
I would also add, we do some other things like in Power School. We're able to identify like when children register for kindergarten. We're able to see if they attended an early learning program, where they attended an early learning program. So we have that information. We do allow parents, when we do our agency status questionnaire, parents are able to indicate if they're doing a 60-month ASQ-SC2, which is used for kindergarten registration. They're able to indicate that they want that information shared with District 97. And then we manually go in, so that is one less thing that they have to do for kindergarten registration. We in the past have helped to facilitate the completion of KRTs for children in the preschool for all of the federally funded preschool programs, to make sure that they have that information for kindergarten registration and doing it in their programs where they are and not like at the district where it's unfamiliar to them. We've helped with that. We've helped work with D97 to develop a streamlined like referral system for children who are in programs that are doing the ASQ. And these providers have been working with these kiddos and they're saying, no, really, we think they need some additional supports. So we're working, and like I said, we're working with Chapin Hall to build a system where then we'll be able to like D97 know, hey, we've got X number of kids coming, this is what their ASQs have looked like, so that they can be prepared to provide whatever they may need going forward. So we're always thinking of ways to do that too.
And I love all of this. I would just also look at how we can work together to engage parents in advance as being partners within, kind of do the handoff with the parents as well as the students, because we know that engaged parents help with student outcomes as well.
That was absolutely a big part of the conversation we had with Dr. Shaw last week.
I think I'll just, if there's no other questions, just close this portion of the meeting with a couple of notes of opportunity to follow up on some of what you mentioned. So the village president does host regular COG meetings. And we had decided COG is Council of Governments, and that includes the township, the library, the park district, D97, D200. In the village. And we had already decided to invite you, so I guess I'm inviting you for April 5th. And we were going to invite yourselves and the Infant Welfare Society. So I've made the note to invite the Oak Park Public Health Department to that meeting and would want to work with you in the planning to make sure that the outcomes of that meeting are as impactful as possible. And then our health department will also be undergoing an I-plan assessment based on the results of what the I-plan itself has provided as to where are we, how can we connect with other partner agencies in the community better to prioritize what we wish to follow up on the strongest things. So Rush Oak Park and West South would be part of that, so we can assist in helping connect you with them. And you started out this meeting by saying that you see a need for connectors, and I do know that our village manager did very much want to be here this evening, so I'm sorry that he could not, because we did see some response to that in our budget, and really wanting to maximize the efficiency of the resources that do exist in our community through our public health department and Connect. So these are, I'm saying these things out loud also for that need for accountability that we follow up on all of the potential, and looking at the administrators in the room, knowing that they'll help us all plan those meetings to get it done. And then I recently hosted a meeting with Linda Schuler from Housing Forward and David Pope with the Residents Corporation at the request of a faith-based member of our community, Deacon Wiley Samuels, with some of the access challenges of community, for those in the community knowing how to utilize the services that exist. And the result of that meeting was to host a training for people on the ground who are working directly with families. And so to add you to that list, and so we would have faith-based members of the community and caregivers, except that will So there's definitely a pattern of some of the same challenges being expressed across many of our, areas where we want to see improvement in our.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right, thank you. So are we going on then to the financial reports, or is there still a collaboration board chair update?
He has a board chair update.
Yeah, I'll try and be
Oh, no,
succinct.
you're all good. This has been very valuable.
I want to create a little bit of context for the environment in which the collab is currently engaged in strategic planning. I think it's fair to say that this is both an exciting time and frankly a terrifying time for the early childhood system. And I recognize that calling it a system is not really a very accurate way to describe how early childhood functions in the United States. On the positive side, public opinion about supporting early childhood is one of the few topics around which people of different political persuasions appear to come together. In November in New Mexico, for example, 70% of the voters supported an amendment to the state's constitution that now guarantees enhanced funding for early childhood, both funding to families and to enhanced compensation for early child care workers and a recruitment program, all three of those things. Their governor, Michelle Lewin Grisham, who's a Democrat, was reelected with just 52% of the vote. So that difference, right? 70% of the voters supported a constitutional amendment to support early childhood is a really amazing thing. Similar initiatives in Oregon and the District of Columbia, Alabama, and Hawaii have taken important steps to ensure that our youngest kids have what they need. I think another positive development, but one that is a little squishier and maybe less obvious, over the last 10 years or so, as we have learned more about the factors that contribute to healthy children and families, our focus has appropriately, I think, shifted from being laser focused on preparing children to be successful in school, although obviously that's really important, and shifted to providing what children need to be healthy and happy where they are in time right at this moment. We know that that focus creates the long-term effects that we want for our kids and in the long game for our communities. That's a broader task and it involves significantly more players, but it's key to understanding the progress that we want to make. I also think a key piece of the broader task, and it's good news that we recognize it, is that it's my favorite made up word. De-siloification of the system is a really crucial piece of what we need to do, and everybody sitting at this table gets that. We've all heard that 15 different ways tonight. That's the good news. At the same time, the federal child care tax credit is gone. We also know that ARPA funding, even though that will do us a ton of good in the short term, is time limited and creates a looming cliff for both parents and BC professionals. Also, as other industries raise compensation to attract workers, and it's very clear that that's happening, people who are or who would be in early childhood, or who would be early childhood professionals, make decisions that take them out of that field forever. And so without concrete action that makes it possible to make a living as an early childhood professional, it will be difficult to sustain what we want to do, what everybody really wants to do. I know that this group is interested in policy implications. I think that understanding the collaboration as the backbone of a collective impact organization dedicated to expanding the capacity of our community to support its youngest citizens helps us see a whole range of things that we might consider. Some of those things, as you heard tonight, we already do. we can do some of them better or more broadly. Some would be new initiatives. There is also room, I believe, for us to exchange information and ideas with surrounding communities at the state and likely at the federal level. And that brings us to the strategic planning process. You have on the screen, I'm just so excited about this. You have on the screen in front of you the collaboration's new mission and vision statements. Those were adopted at our November 7th Collab Council meeting. And those are in your packet as well. And they're also on the Collab's website. Next slide, please. We also adopted a set of core values that are thoroughly fleshed out there in that document. The products that you see in front of you are the result of many rich conversations over the last 6 to 7 months, involving board, staff, community providers and partners, parents, and workshopping and rethinking, and we're very pleased and excited with where we landed. What that means is that we now have 4 strategic pillars of work, and that's where our next task is going to focus. The timeline is, we hope, early July for taking those pillars, looking carefully at what the community is telling us, and then creating specific goals and identifying the data that goes with those. There's some play in the timeline, and there needs to be, because our new ED would need to be actively involved in identifying those goals and talking about the data and the systems that go with it. That brings us to the last update, and that is a brief conversation about our ED search. Maybe you wonder why the Collab is engaging in strategic planning and while we're in the middle of an ED search. And the answer to that is we started strategic planning about a month before COVID hit. And it was very clear to us we couldn't have the rich conversations in the community that we needed to have. Knowing what we know now and having people be used to Zoom conversations and that sort of thing, we might have landed in a little different place, but at that point in time, we just didn't know. Once things began to return to normal in terms of folks meeting and having conversations, we decided it was important to do at least the mission, vision, and value statement. And then once the new director is on board, we would flesh out the strategic pillars of work. We are actively engaged in the search process at the moment. We have a number of applications in, and we'll proceed with that process and hope to have an exciting result for you sooner rather than later. Before I end that conversation, I want to provide a huge shout out to Laura, who has acted as our interim executive director, and to staff members who all have stepped up and shouldered an incredible amount of work, not just treading water, but continuing to tackle new opportunities and situations that we need to be engaged with. They've done a marvelous job. So, and with that, I would like to pass this back to Laura. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Becky. Were there any other questions on that before I switch to finances? Which will be very brief, I promise, although they are the most exciting part of the evening. You have detailed financial reports in the packet of material, not the paper version, but in the list that you received online. Our fiscal year ended June 30th, and our audit was approved by the Collaboration's Board of Directors in November. It's publicly posted on our website in the reports section, along with all of the reports that you received tonight, and all of our past IGA and tri-board materials are there, as well as all of our Board of Directors materials. And we will email all your key finance people a copy of the audit pretty soon. Overall, for our finances for last year, our revenue and expenses came in very close to their budgeted amounts. We billed the IGA, the Intergovernmental Agreement Body, of which you're all members. We billed all 6 of the possible payments. How it works is we can bill every other month for a set amount that's in the contract. If we do not see that we're going to be needing that money, we don't bill for it. And so in the last 2 years, we've been kind of fully ramped up, and so we billed the full amounts of that the contract allows, and we have not needed to get any of it back. There's a formula in which the auditors calculate. This is all something that we went in a little more detail with the IGA representatives at the meeting last month. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. They heard a little bit more detail about that. We're in a strong financial position with approximately 7 months of cash on hand. And then the pie chart we have here is also in our annual report, so that's part of our public documents as well. Our revenue for last year was 1.52338, and the funds that we received from local government bodies made up 83% of our revenue. In addition to your 3 boards, that also includes contributions from the Park District and the library. Last year, we were at 88%. We also received grants and private contributions, and we have a contract with the state of Illinois to conduct hearing and vision screens. On a side note, we are currently doing our annual appeal, and we love individual contributions. This next chart is just our expenses from last fiscal year, and they're spread out across our program service areas. Family engagement is the largest one because that includes our full agreement with Easter Seals, which includes quite a few staff people. And then for the current fiscal year, we do reports to our board of directors quarterly. So you've got our first quarter report in there. They've looked through those. That's July through September. We're off to a good start with both revenue and expenses. And we do expect to bill the IGA for all 6 possible payments again this year. And then the last thing in the packet is, I just wanted to point out, it's an administrative report from D97, which is the fiscal agent. Again, Patrick King, the Senior Director of Finance, reported to the IGA board reps on this at the meeting last month. I'm sure if there are any additional questions that Ushma or Pat can address those as well. That is something just to kind of give you a very quick overview. The collaboration doesn't have a hand in overseeing that. That's something that District 97 as the fiscal agent handles money from all of your boards to District 97. And we request money to D97 and receive that out every other month. Were there any questions on the finances? And with that, I just wanted to say, we covered all sorts of things tonight, and we just wanted to leave you with this one last quote that we thought was pretty inspiring from a local parent, which says that our children may be small, but they are mighty and full of potential, and they're capable of teaching adults too. That's another one just to keep. With that, I will say thank you, unless there are any other questions.
Shortly, I'll be able to call for adjournment. Clerk Waters, you have something more for us?
I do. I just want to make a note, as President Scammon had stated, Village Manager Jackson is not here this evening. But I want to be very clear that Village Manager Jackson is not here due to a miscommunication on my behalf that this meeting was canceled. Otherwise, he would be here. So he sends his sincerest apologies, as do I.
Thank you for that. I will also point out that we did have a one-on-one meeting with Dee and with Vicky and yourself. So he's getting pretty well versed on our work, and it's so exciting to have him on board. And he's really hit the ground running with actually a very impressive knowledge base of early childhood already. So I'm looking forward to those conversations.
And Dr. Sean Greg Johnson. Thank you. So we'll call for the adjournment of the village board, and then I'll turn it over to Venus for D97. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Christine, would you, Clerk Waters, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Enya,
Yes.
trustee Robinson,
Yes.
trustee Buchanan is absent, trustee Butterfield is absent, trustee Taglia,
Yes.
trustee Wesley,
Yes.
president Stamey.
Yes. And Venus, feel the same?
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Yes.
Second,
Board Member Ross Strickland,
yes.
Vice President Hurd Johnson.
Yes.
Board Member Kearney,
Yes.
all in favor? Aye.
Yeah, very good. All in favor, we've done it. Two years on it.
Yeah, no, we actually love
During COVID, we really did. Have a good night, everybody.